Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 18th of November, which is a Sunday evening. And this story here is a bit of a follow-up. It says Canadians oppose StatsCan Bank info request poll. Now, I did a story a few days ago that the StatsCan, this is a statistics gathering government organisation, had asked the government for permission to go to banks and get your personal banking data so they could analyze it, and they didn't think they had to ask for your consent because that data was going to be anonymized. Okay, so they were going to take your name off, and it would be just the figures that they would be looking at. But of course, you know, this is the narrow wedge coming through the door, and once this is established, of course, it's just going to be downhill from there. But 74% of respondents opposed the agency accessing their personal records without consent. That's 3/4 of everybody asked were upset, and thank goodness, and you pay attention. Private information remains private. We have a right to privacy in the Constitution, and we will have that privacy. And as I say, thankfully, Canadians have kicked back, and a vast majority, this is not a 49-51%, fully 74%. Very good indeed. Here is mistakes in ocean study. This was a group of scientists who were measuring the temperatures of the ocean, and after it was published, a few other scientists checked the data and found some glaring mistakes after doing some simple arithmetic. Fairly obvious warming findings didn't make sense. A study that claimed the oceans were warming faster than thought was undermined by errors, and that overstated the certainty of the researchers' conclusion. It says here, the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, home to several of the researchers involved, also noticed the problems in the scientists' work and corrected a news release on its website that asserted that the study detailed how the Earth's oceans have absorbed 60% more heat than previously thought. Unfortunately, we made mistakes here, said Ralph Keeling, a climate scientist at Scripps who was the co-author of the study. I think the main lesson is that you can work as fast as you can to fix mistakes when you find them. The central problem, Keeling said, came in how the researchers dealt with the uncertainty in their measurement. So far as I can see, their methods vastly underestimates the uncertainty, Lewis said Tuesday, as well as biasing up significantly, nearly 30%, the central estimate, 30%. This is just one study. I wonder how many more studies are flawed by poor mathematics, because, you know, we have been in basically an 18-year hiatus for warming. Okay, we have neither warmed nor cooled, and actually I do believe we're going into a cooling period. We are on a cycle here, but the oceans are cooling, the sun's flaring is slowing down, and the cosmic rays are increasing our cloud cover, and so we have a greater albedo effect, and we are going to cool. Anyway, it just shows you that, what is it they say around here? What do the farmers say around here when you ask about the weather? They'll push back their hat with the corner of their thumb, and they'll say, well, the weather will make a fool out of you 7 days of the week. And there you go. The weather will make a fool out of you 7 days of the week. And this is the issue that we should be concentrating on. Raw sewage flowing into rivers and lakes. Prevents not dealing with issue. Watchdog. Raw sewage has been overflowing into Ontario's lakes and rivers at an alarming rate, and the government is doing little to stop it. The province's environmental watchdog said Tuesday as she laid out broad changes required to keep waterways clean. Environmental Commissioner Diane Sachs outlined her concerns and recommendations in an annual report called Back to Basics that looked at the state of the province's waterways between April 2017 and March this year. During that time, the report found that raw sewage overflowed into southern Ontario's waterways 1,327 times. More than half of those overflows, 766, were from nearly 60 outdated municipal sewer systems that combine sewage and stormwater. Despite closed beaches and decades of concern, the government has still not required these municipalities to do everything reasonable to stop the overflows, Sachs said. Now, that is all through the Liberals' watch for the last 15 years. Nothing has been done. Now, these are supposed to be the environmental giants. So it shows you it is not just Conservatives that ignore the environment. It is Liberals, and no doubt the Greens would do the same thing, and the NDP. Okay, they're all ignoring an issue that I've tried to raise here over and over and over again about the pouring of raw sewage. We have the same problem in City of Kawartha Lakes, and all of these lakes are joined together, and as Fenelon Falls upstream for us dumps its raw sewage into our lakes. Now, most of it's treated most of the time, but in an emergency they can dump 25% raw sewage into the lakes, and it's basically at capacity. So anything, a minor rainfall can upset the sewage treatment plant there. Okay, so this is a real issue, and we draw our drinking water just not even 5 miles downstream from that sewage treatment plant. So hopefully the Conservatives can take heed, because we destroy our environment at our peril. And talk about destroying the environment. Here we have gene-edited food coming, but will shoppers buy? Personally, I don't think we need to alter the genes of our fruits and vegetables. I think they are, let's put it this way, we can manipulate the genes through cross-pollination. It may take a little bit more time, but you're working with nature. We don't even understand how the human body works. Okay? We don't understand how the brain works. We don't know how, we know the components of our blood cells, but we don't know how our cells work. We don't know how memory works. We have no idea what the life force is within us, even though scientists have looked in every hole that they can possibly think of. They can't find that spark of life that is who we are as human beings. And now we want to fiddle around with the genetics of a plant. Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? We need to do this in a much more natural way, and we can. And maybe if we stop raw sewage entering our environment and all kinds of other terrible pollutants, maybe we would have the time to use cross-pollination to get the very best plants to grow in all kinds of conditions. It is absolutely possible, and something nobody ever talks about, these gene editing programs, is all the test varieties. You see, once they've made a genetically modified organism, they have to test that on a large scale to see what's going to happen when it interacts with nature, because most of these genetically modified organisms are created in a lab and then cultivated under extremely controlled conditions. And so when you enter the real world, you have no idea what is out in the real world that is going to interact with that organism and change it in some way. And trust me, you can go down to South America and there is all kinds of soybean growing out of control down there that you cannot kill because it's pesticide resistant. And it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, and maybe you should do a little Google search for that. It's a fascinating story of all of these GMO test crops that are now out of control, and we never hear about them. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation as much as I enjoyed presenting those stories. So if you did, please like and subscribe below, and let's see if we can't leave some comments and join the conversation. These are important things that are taking place in our world, and the only way we can resolve them is by us all discussing them together as a society. Okay, well, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. You take care, you have a great week, and we'll talk to you very soon. See you now. Bye-bye.